If we want to continue to make disciples, that means we engage our cultures and community with the gospel. It means we establish biblical foundations in the lives of new believers and all believers. And it also means that we learn how to equip those disciples in basic ministry skills. This video, we want to focus on equipping, and we have a lot of online resources available right now that can really upgrade how we're doing the equip part of the discipleship journey.
One of the great challenges when we think about discipleship is how do we do it when we can't gather together? Whether it's engaging, establishing, equipping, or empowering, we always envision ourselves one-on-one or one-on in a small group, and we're with people. So in this time where we're practicing social distancing in a time of a global health crisis, the question we're all asking is how can we be disciple makers and be disciples in this challenging time? I'm going to speak specifically about equipping. And just the other day, I was on a phone call with a Vanderbilt student who's recently been sent home from the dorms, as most universities are sending their students home right now. And I remember him saying, hey, we had this really, really great moment with a student just days before we had to be sent home. And he gave his life to Jesus, but I'm really not sure if he fully understands everything about what it means to follow Jesus. I don't even know how to stay in touch with him because we're in different states. And I'm really wondering how I can establish foundations from a distance. So for him, his problem was, how can I establish foundations? For me, my problem was, how do I equip this young disciple maker on campus who's no longer on campus? And we're in 3 different locations. Me, the student leader, and the person who's beginning to follow Jesus. How do we do this? It really dawned on me how difficult and challenging, but essential equipping is in this time. And the reality is that equipping at a distance is not, though it's a challenge, it's not something new. We often forget when we read the Bible, many of Paul's epistles were written when he was in prison. There was an actual crisis that kept him from being in person with the people he really needed to equip. One of those was Timothy. 2 Timothy, the letter he wrote to Timothy, was this important equipping letter that Paul wrote from prison shortly before he was martyred. And you see this urgency and this clarity and this need for him to equip Timothy. And it's really some of the most famous passages on equipping that we've ever read come from that short letter where Paul tells Timothy to fan into flame the gift of God that's in him through the laying on of hands, where he tells him to bear hardship like a good soldier of Christ, where he tells him to preach the word in season, out of season. You can see here, we have all these things that Paul felt very urgent, felt very sort of serious and desperate to communicate to Timothy, which under any other circumstance he would have much rather done in person. But because of the circumstance, because he was in prison, because he was heading toward his death, he had to do it through a medium of writing letters, to do it at a distance. That should encourage us that when we're in a moment of crisis and we can't equip in the way we'd like, there are still other creative ways to do that. Obviously, for me, with the student I was speaking with, we have several phone calls we're having, and I encouraged him to continue his small group through Zoom. It's a very basic step. He and his classmates are all learning how to do class on Zoom right now, so it makes perfect sense for us to do our small group on Zoom with those same classmates, even though they're in many, many states around the United States. On a more macro scale, when we think about leadership development opportunities, how we can equip people in our churches, we've recently launched Leadership 215 online with a very high-powered LMS. It puts all the Leadership 215 content, all the videos, all the course notes, all the reflection questions, everything you could possibly need. It's put it in a very organized online digital format that any church can access. It's totally free. So we'd welcome anyone to participate in using Leadership 215 online. And in the coming years, we'll have Every Nation Seminary, and a further along equipping tool that we have that we can equip people from a distance. But I just encourage you, equipping at a distance is something that's challenging, but let's not waste the opportunity we have to really equip other people to make disciples, equip leaders to continue to minister where they are, even though we can't be with them in person. And when we do it really well, we will be amazed to see the fruit that comes from that. Thinking about 2 Timothy, Paul's letter to 2 Timothy, what fruit came from that moment where Paul was forced to communicate these key leadership and discipleship principles at a distance and with great clarity and great forcefulness and great transferability. So God bless you as you seek to equip disciples to make more disciples wherever you are And I pray that God will give you creativity and wisdom and perseverance.
Greetings from the Philippines. The last few weeks have been quite challenging given the COVID situation, specifically for our school as we continue to equip and train the next generation of pastors, cross-cultural missionaries, and campus missionaries. The situation that we face caused us to rethink how we could do leadership development, how we could equip them so that they could answer the call of God in their life. And so when there was an announcement of a community quarantine that was closed, it was about Friday weekend was coming, so we had to do a turnaround in terms of how we do our classes. We were planning to have online classes, implement learning management systems, but this situation has caused us to accelerate all of our plans. By the grace of God, we were able to convert our face-to-face meetings into online meetings from our classes, and I'm so glad about our Leadership 215 now that it is in Pathright, our new learning management system. We were able to shift quickly, and because we have the Pathright, the learning management system, we were able to get our students focused on our Leadership 215 while we created the other content. We even used Zoom for online discussions, even mentoring, question and answer. I'm really grateful for the team God has given us, such flexibility, and even the students. They have so much to say about how things were a bit difficult at the beginning, but now they're learning to adjust with a new setup. And so even with this happening in our midst, even with COVID-19 just jumping in on us, I'm really glad that His grace is sufficient. We're able to do what needs to be done in training our leaders and transforming nations. So, thank you.
My name is Tiffany, and I'm going to graduate from Leadership 215 in May. I've been attending live classes at my church every Tuesday night for almost 2 years now, and I'm really excited to finally be able to graduate. Of course, with the COVID-19 lockdown, we had to move everything online. So I'm so thankful for the technology and the resources and our teachers and facilitators that so quickly moved all of our content and classes online, and that we're still able to be equipped in ministry and leadership during this crisis. I've noticed 3 main benefits of getting this ministry training online. One of them, especially during crisis, is that it's been very centering part of my week. It's a time in my week through the classes and the assignments that I know will always point me towards Jesus. Second is the flexibility. I'm able to pause. I can rewind if there's a part of the class that I wanted to go more in depth or had questions about, and I can really think about it. And then lastly, it's creativity and application. Right now, the classes that I'm taking are Spirit-Empowered Ministry and Marketplace Ministry. I think those are so great and timely. How can we still have Spirit-Empowered Ministry when we can't lay hands on people or we can't see people? And how can I still minister in my workplace when all of my calls are on Zoom or Google Hangouts? So I'm really thankful for Leadership 215 and that it's available online, and I'm excited to see what God does during this time.